What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to create a minimal intro animation inside Davinci Resolve. So let's have a look at the preview and get started. Alright, so first thing we are going to do is go up to settings and change the timeline frame rate. I'm going to use 30. You can obviously choose any frame rate that you want and click on save. Drag in the fusion composition onto the timeline. You can find it in effects, fusion composition. Let's go to the fusion page and start creating our animation. Right click and click on arrange tools to grid and put the media out on the right side. And I'm going to start off by creating our background. So let's just drag in the background node, and you can also rename your nodes if you want to be a bit more organized. I'm not going to bother about that for now. So let's just drag this onto the viewer to see the background node. And right now the color is set to black. I'm going to change that color. We are going to add another background, so I'm going to use background 2, and on this one I'm going to add an ellipse mask to this. And let's see this on the right side. So I'm going to go to the very first frame, and I'm going to animate the width and the height. So right now these two are not linked together, but we can link these together so that we can just use a single slider to control both the values. So I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to click on expression, and then I'm going to click and hold on this plus icon and then link it with height. Now you can use your height to control your width as well, which is what we want. So I'm going to set this to, I'm going to increase this so that it fills up this entire viewer, and I'm going to create a keyframe. So click on this diamond icon to create a keyframe, move to 30th frame and just bring this back to 0. Alright, so now we will go to spline, and I'm going to select this height. I'm going to click on this icon that says zoom to fit, and I'm going to select these two keyframes. You can just rubber band select these two, or you can just click on this icon that says select all. And I'm going to hit the S key on the keyboard to smoothen out the graph, and also the T key on the keyboard to bring in the ease in and ease out values. I'm going to increase the ease in to 100. I can exit out of the spline and take a look at this animation. Right, that's looking pretty sweet. Then we can actually copy this, Control C, and I'm going to paste it under these two nodes like that. And I'm going to, on the second background node, I'm going to change its color to white. Let's connect these two together and see the merge on the right side. So right now you're seeing the black color because that is what the foreground is. If you want to see the white color, you have to switch the foreground and the background. So you select the merge node and hit Control T on the keyboard to switch the foreground and the background, and then you will be able to see your node. I'm going to just go to select the ellipse tool, and I'm going to go to spline, and I'm also going to click on this icon, the menu icon, and click on show only selected tools. I'm going to select the height only, and I'm going to select these two keyframes, hold the shift key on the keyboard and just move it forward by about 3 or 4 frames. Alright, so something like that. I'm going to actually hit Control T again to make sure that my black background is coming in as a foreground, and this background, the white one, is coming in as a background on this merge node. Now you'll have your animation that will look something like this. Right, so you can, if you want more delay between these two shapes, you can again go to spline, select these two keyframes, hold the shift key and just drag it forward like that. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I'm actually going to add in another merge node. So let's just drag in the merge tool, and I'm going to connect the background with this merge, and then I'm going to connect the merge 2 with merge 1. So now if you take a look at this merge 3, you'll see just the background, but if you select merge 3 and hit Control T on the keyboard, you'll be able to see all of your shapes and the background as well. I'm going to select this and hit Control G to group it. You can also rename this group. Okay, now we will create our ellipse and animate it. So I'm going to drag in the background node, and I'm going to change its color to white. then I'm going to select this and add a ellipse mask on this. So let's just view this on the left screen here, and let's see. Okay, so we have to first of all find the point where we want to add our keyframe. So maybe right at this point, or maybe at 30th frame, let's add a keyframe on width and height. Again, we have to link these two together. Right click expression and link it with the height. I'm gonna create a keyframe on height, set this to 0. I'm gonna go to maybe 5 frames forward and just increase the size a bit, so maybe around 0.04. And now we also want to change or move or animate its position. So we can do that in the ellipse itself by animating the center X and Y, but I would like to do it with a transform node. So I'm going to hit shift spacebar and type in XF and add the transform node to this. To view this transform node, you can just drag this onto the viewer. I'm going to drag it onto the right side of the viewer, and I will animate the center X and Y. So I'm going to move to 30th frame, create a keyframe on center X and Y, move forward to 60 and move it to the top somewhere over here. And I'm going to go to spline and select these two keyframes, hit S, select it again, hit S and ease it in, exit the spline. So, and you can just now take a look at your animation. Now I also want to rotate it to the right, and we have the angle property here, but it's not going to work. As you can see, it just rotates the shape itself, but we want to rotate rotate the angle position as well. So I'm going to add another transform node. Click on add, and now we can change the angle. If you view this transform node onto the right side, you can change the angle and you can see it moves the entire shape, which is what we want. So I'm going to do this at the 60th frame, create a keyframe on angle, move to 90 and change the angle to -50. Alright, so I'm going to go to spline, select these two keyframes, hit S and just ease it in, exit the spline now. So our animation will look something like this. Okay, so to create multiple copies of this, you can go ahead and add a duplicate node. Search for duplicate and click on add, and now you can view this duplicate node by dragging it onto the viewer, or you can also press the 2 key on the keyboard if you want to display it on the second viewer, or if you want to display it on the first viewer, you can type, or you can hit the 1 key on your keyboard. I'm going to display it on the right side or the second viewer, and I'm going to increase the number of copies to 4. I want 4 of these shapes, and I would like to change the angle as well. I'm going to set this to 90, and now if you scrub through the timeline, you'll see that you have these 4 shapes animating, and yeah, it looks pretty neat. I'm also going to animate its position, so I want, after 90th frame, I want it to come back to the center. So I'm going to select this transform 1, and I'm going to go to the 90th frame, create a keyframe there, move forward to 110 and set this back to 0.5, and we'll come back. So I'm going to go to spline and select these two keyframes, hit S and ease it in. Well, actually this time I don't want to ease in, I want to ease out. So I'm going to increase the ease out value just like that and exit the spline. I want it to animate slow at the beginning and then, you know, gradually speed up at the center. Yeah. So the positioning of the keyframes will really depend on your audio track as well that you're going to use. So it will require going back and forth to the edit page and the fusion page. So that's one thing to remember. You can duplicate, group this, Control G, and you can call this circle, and let's create our lines. So I'm going to drag in the background node, and then I'm going to add a rectangle mask on this, Let's view this on the right side, and I'm going to change its color to white. Obviously you can choose any color that you want, and I'm going to increase the width, and I'm going to decrease the height as well. And then we have this corner radius. I'm going to increase this to 1. Right, so you can play around with the height. Okay, so now we will animate this. I'm going to zoom in, and let's Control C, just copy this rectangle 1 mask, Control C and Control V. I'll create a copy of it, and this will use this copied mask to animate this line. So I'm going to move this onto the left side and create a position keyframe or center X and Y keyframe, and we have to create this at the 30th frame. So make sure your playhead is at the 30th frame. Create a position, create a center X and Y keyframe, and let's move forward to 60th frame and just bring this one to the right side of this line. Go to the spline and select these 2 keyframes, hit S, and then ease it in. Okay, so and also just make sure that your paint mode is set to multiply. And now if you scrub to the timeline, you will see that you'll get a loading bar kind of animation. And you can also add duplicate node to this. Click on add, and I want 5 copies. And to distribute it evenly, you can do a real quick math here. So in the angle, you can do like 360 divided by 5, and it will create those copies, that number of copies, and distribute it evenly. You can view this duplicate node by dragging it onto your viewer, and there you have your circle burst animation. I think that's too big, so I'm going to go back to rectangle, and I'm going to decrease the width, something like that. Okay, so that's looking great. I'm going to group this and call this lines. And now what we will do is we will create one more circle wipe animation, and we'll do that. Let's bring in the background node, and I'm also going to add in a ellipse mask to this. On the background, I'm going to set its color to white. So let's view this background over here. I'm going to find where we want to create this wipe animation. So I'm going to drag in this circle group onto my first monitor here. I'm going to scrub to the timeline, and I'm going to find the place where all these dots or all these ellipses come in the center. So they come in the center at about 110th frame. So I'm going to animate this ellipse that we just created on that frame. So go to 110 and create, we have to animate width and the height. So first we will link these two together. Click on right click and click on expression, click and hold and link it with the height, and we can animate the height. So I'm going to set this to at 110. I'm going to set this to 0, and then I'm going to move to 140 and increase the height, so that I'm going to keep on increasing it until it fills it in completely with this white color. Obviously these colors, you can choose any color that you want. I'm going to go to spline and zoom to fit, select all the keyframes, hit S, and just ease it in. So if you take a look at this, that's what we have created so far. You can group this as well. Let's bring in our logo. It's time to animate our logo. Let's bring it in inside Fusion, and got this logo from icons8.com YouTube logo. If you just view this, this is the logo, 480 by 480 pixels in size. So if you hit shift spacebar on this and add a background node to this, click on add, and this background node, I'm going to make it black, and I'm also going to reduce the opacity to 0. And yeah, so you can see that if you drag the merge node onto the right side, you will see that it just changes to 480 into 480, because the merge node, you can see that if you hover over on this triangle icon, you can see the background of this node is this logo. But if we switch the background and make the background node as the background, you can Control T to do that. If you want to switch it, you can hit Control T, and now you can see that it's 1920 by 1080 again. So just keep this in mind, that the background determines the size of your comp. I'm going to, on this merge node, I'm going to add a transform node to animate it. So I'm going to hit XF to add a transform node, and I'm going to animate this. So I'll move to 110, create a keyframe on size, set this to 0, and let's view this transform node over here. And I'm going to go to 140 and increase the size, something like that. Go to spline, select these two keyframes, zoom to fit, select all the keyframes, hit S, and then ease it in. Exit the spline, and you'll have an animation like this. Right, so then we can group this, and we can call this logo. And now all we have to do is just connect these all together. So I also brought the media out over here, and I'm going to connect the background with the circle, which will result in a merge node. And if you see this merge node on the right, you will see that you'll play your animation, and we have our circles here that are not visible on the merge 5. So to make it visible, all you have to do is hit Control T on the keyboard to switch the foreground and the background, and you'll be able to see your circle animation in your merge as well. I'm going to connect the merge 5 output with the lines, and again, if you view this, you won't be able to see the lines. We have to hit Control T again to see it. And then we have to connect merge 6 with group 1. Okay, let's view this merge, and if you scrub through at 110, this animation happens. So you cannot see it because we have to again switch it. So Control T to do that. You'll be able to see it again. And then we have our logo, so merge 7, connect it with the logo, and view this merge 8 over here. Again, we have to hit Control T to see our logo. So then we only have to do is connect the merge 8 with media out, view the media out, and you can now play your animation. We're going to turn on high quality and motion blur as well, so that it just plays smoothly. So there you go, that's how you can create this nice minimalistic intro animation inside Davinci Resolve. So you can then finally end with adding a text plus a node. So let me just do that real quick. Type in your text and view this text onto the viewer, and I'm going to just position this over here and change its color to black. And let's just disconnect this and connect these two together. And again, you have to hit Control T to see your text. I'm going to animate it at 110. I'm going to add a follower. Right click on your style text, follower, go to modifiers. I'm going to set the delay amount to 2, left to right, and I'm going to quickly add a opacity follower. So I'm going to set the opacity at 0, create a keyframe, and move to 130 and set this back to 100 or 1. There's no 100. Yeah, so we can just bring this down and maybe adjust the size of our text. That should be good. Right, so that's it. That's how we can create this animation. Don't forget to link it with the media out. You can also let's go to the circles. and you have the ellipse or the transform that you're animating, you can enable motion blur on this. You can go to the settings and enable the motion blur, and you can play around with different settings. Make sure your motion blur is turned on to see it in action, and you can do this with all the different nodes. Right, so that's it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please do consider liking the video and also subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.